Hey, it's Jordan with Status Coup. We are 36 days away from what might be the largest strike in recent history in the United Corporations of America. That would be General Motors, Ford, and Stellantis workers going on strike. And yesterday, UAW President Shawn Fain, who was elected earlier this year, opened up what I would call a good old can of whoop ass on the big three, particularly Stellantis, going so far to throw the contract offer they offered recently in the trash. This is really amazing to watch. In my lifetime, I'm only 36. I haven't seen any union leader be this blunt, this aggressive, and this tenacious against the bosses at these companies, and not just cozying and palling around with these companies like most union heads have done over the last 20 or 30 years. I'm going to show you several clips. Stick around for each one because honestly, it gets better as you go. This guy, Shawn Fain, not screwing around, and I think we are very, very likely headed for a strike. Pay attention to the first part.
I've been shocked to see how one company in particular is trying to lowball and undercut us. And just as a quick reminder, the big three made a combined $21 billion in profits in the first 6 months of this year. That's on top of the $250 billion in North American profits they made over the last decade. The company with the fattest eye-popping margins and profit earnings, it's been Stellantis. Stellantis made a staggering $12.1 billion in net profits in the first half of 2023. Stellantis CEO Carlos Tavares made $24.8 million last year. He's seen his salary grow by 72% over the last 4 years. In fact, the average Stellantis worker would have to work full-time for 365 years to make what Tavares does in just 1 year. Think of that, 365 years, how far back we'd have to go in time to make what Carlos Tavares makes in just 1 year. And on top of the lavish executive salaries, Stellantis spent billions of their record profits on stock buyback schemes that further enrich the top 1%. Stellantis is rich thanks to the value created by the members. It's our labor that drives the company's success. And while the big three executives and the shareholders got rich, UAW members, the workers, got left behind. Our message to the big three is simple and very blunt. Record profits equal record contracts. But apparently, Stellantis isn't listening. Stellantis knows our members deserve more, and they know the public is sick of seeing corporations and the rich continue to make out like bandits while the working class gets left further and further behind. That's why the company, they've recently made multiple statements to the media claiming that they are not seeking a concessionary agreement in this round of negotiations. And I want to tell you, UAW family, that just isn't true. Stellantis has passed over a list of initial proposals that are riddled with givebacks. It's amazing to me that I open this first page here, and the first highlighted item here is absenteeism. You know, it's a pathetic irony that Carlos Tavares can't bother to show up to bargaining, and that Mark Stewart, CEO, was late showing up to the first opening of bargaining, and as they move forward, they want to talk about absenteeism with our workers. Another part of this, we have to reflect about. We hear about absenteeism all the time, and this is something that really pisses me off when I hear these companies keep beating this to death. We are the most overworked country in the world. Our members, our workers in the United States put in more hours than any country in the world. And you look at COVID, what happened? Our workers worked through COVID. And if there's one thing that I could say that happened over the last several years that made us realize what's important in life, it wasn't living in factories 7 days a week, 12 hours a day. If COVID did anything, it made people reflect on what's important in life. And it sure as hell isn't living in a factory.
Damn! And by the way, CNBC's Jim Cramer is melting down over Fain. We'll get to that in a minute. You got to love it. I mean, I'm not trying to be a fanboy, but straight up, this guy is badass. And it's about damn time after decades and decades of these vanilla, concessionary, corporatist leaders at UAW and elsewhere who were either palling around or straight up corrupt with the company. This guy is here to galvanize the troops. This guy is here to demand what the workers are entitled to. And by the way, as Bernie once said, you don't ask for half a loaf, you demand the full loaf, even though Bernie hasn't really been doing that, but that's a different story. I love how they're putting on screen that this CEO of Stellantis, 72% increase in his pay in 1 year. Crunch the numbers. It would take workers at Stellantis 365 years to match what their CEO made in just one. And they have a nice little picture of that pencil nerd CEO smiling. That's what you got to do. Take it straight to them. Galvanize the troops. And the UAW workers I'm talking to love this guy, are willing to follow this guy into battle, figuratively. They are finally feel like they have leadership that is actually with them rather than cozying up to the company. But it gets better. It gets better. Let me show you another part of this where he just goes for it. Doesn't screw around, literally dumps the contract in the garbage.
And a sad reality of this and what they proposed, rather than taking seriously our demand to eliminate tiers, Stellantis proposed the creation of new ones. You know, when I flow through here, instead of getting to work on negotiating the significant wage gains of our members that they've earned and deserve, Stellantis is threatening our profit-sharing formula. We propose the reestablishment of retiree medical benefits for all workers. Stellantis has proposed cuts to our existing medical coverage. We propose more paid time off for workers to spend with their family and friends. Stellantis has proposed the elimination of the holiday conversion option, fewer vacation days for new hires, and less choice of when we can take vacation. They've also proposed to expand their right to force members to work overtime. Stellantis has proposed cuts to their 401k contribution, gutting the transfer rights based on seniority. They've also proposed eliminating the moratorium on outsourcing. They've also proposed to eliminate the cap on the use of temporary employees and have disrespected our trades with proposals that would make it easier to outsource more of our work. Stellantis even had the nerve to demand the unilateral right to demand further concessions during the life of the contract and for the union to allow the company to make those changes without a vote of our membership. The contract currently being proposed by Stellantis would deepen the divisions in our workplace, not eliminate them. These proposals would make life harder and a lot more stressful. So UAW family, I'm going to be blunt. Stellantis' proposals are a slap in the face. They're an insult to our members' hard work over the last 4 years. As I said earlier, our members have worked their asses off in the best of times and the worst of times to produce incredible value for this company. During COVID, UAW members were deemed essential. They risked their lives, and some gave up their lives to keep the lines running. So rather than honoring the sacrifices made by the employees, management's chosen to spit in our faces. You know, it's ironic I sit here and look through this. I mean, just a few more things I highlighted, increase the number of pay periods required to work for full vacation entitlement. So now, not just the 26 weeks you got to get in a year, they want you to work more weeks to qualify for your full vacation allotment. They want to create a no-fault-based absenteeism system where they can punish workers more. Company has the ability to schedule mandatory vacation shutdowns without restriction on duration, timing, notice, and cancellation criteria. They want to reduce the company's notification requirements for modifying shift start times. They want to enable supervisors to perform bargaining unit work. But, you know, the biggest one to me was this issue about adding a new letter establishing the ability to reopen and bargain provisions of our agreements that don't require ratification. So I'll tell you what, brothers and sisters, when we get things like this from the company and they want to sit there and talk about they're not asking for concessions or looking for concessions, everything they're looking for in this document is about concessions. So I'll tell you what I'm going to do with their proposal. I'm going to file it in its proper place because that's where it belongs, the trash, because that's what it is.
Damn, burn, son. In fact, you know what it really made me think of for my old school WWE wrestling love? When I was a kid, no more. Let me tell you something. This guy is a breath of fresh air. I don't know him personally, but he is really, really tactfully, strategically, both galvanizing the base, laying out of workers, laying out the data crystal clear, and shooting for the moon. Now, they might not get the moon, but with this kind of approach, this aggressive approach, you're going to get a lot more than in past concessions by the UAW, former chiefs of UAW. And this is what actually activates your workers when they have union representation that is speaking their language, the workers' language, demanding what you are owed, not anything more than what you're entitled to, but these workers gave back and gave back and gave back each contract. So they are just asking for what they already conceded to, giving that back and more to factor in inflation and cost of living. They're not asking for anything outrageous, but the CNBC crowd, they're not happy, particularly Jim Cramer, who is comparing Shawn Fain, this UAW president, to a former communist leader. Let's take a look at CNBC's reaction to Mr. Fain's live stream.
And the incredible Facebook performance by Shawn Fain yesterday, where he just called the Stellantis offer trash. We're going to have, right when we start talking about the presidential election, I think the biggest strike our country has had in years, which is the UAW.
Do you think that's going to happen?
Yeah.
You don't think Gene Sperling can talk both sides off of ledges?
No, Gino can't do it because this guy who runs the UAW reminds me of Earl Browder. I mean, he's like a longshoreman union. The stevedores.
Well, today's the 100th day of the writers on strike.
Right.
And that rhetoric isn't cooling down after Friday's apparently failed meeting.
No, I mean, these things matter tremendously. The auto strike is going to, I have Dana on tonight.
When
Not
was that
Zool. I don't have. I have Zool
September
on tomorrow.
14th
Dana
is the
tonight.
contract.
September 14th. But the fellow who's running it is just going around telling. Like, if you walked in there, he would tell you. I mean, he says horrible things. He's talking about a kleptocracy, that the people who own these stocks are just bad people. I mean, Americans own these. I mean, it's like it's in your 401k.
Yeah, I haven't been focused.
Oh, you've got to focus on this guy.
All right.
This guy is he was made for our show.
We should bring him on?
Oh, I want him on. Shawn Fain, I think he should be like a co-host. He is so electric. He is third rail. He is using rhetoric that Elizabeth Warren would say, keep your mouth shut.
Really?
He's so mean to these generous, courageous, kind corporate CEOs. He's calling this a kleptocracy. Well, I mean, what do you call the United Corporations of America? What do you call these executives who basically preach and enact social Darwinism on steroids? I mean, just look at what General Motors CEO Mary Barra had to say about these workers back during the last strike in 2019. And I quote, Mary Barra said, quote, there's a lot of conversation about job security. Job security is not something you negotiate, she said. Job security is something that you earn, and making sure they all understand that, and their role is something we'll double down as we go forward. I.e., know your role and shut your fucking mouth. Take the crumbs we're offering you. I think Shawn Fain is right on point. And Jim Cramer, because CNBC doesn't like this kind of tact, they don't like this kind of aggression from the worker bees. He's comparing him to Earl Browder, who, if you don't know, was a former communist leader back in the 20th century, used to be the general secretary of the Communist Party of the U.S. This is not communism. This is called egalitarianism. This is called the proletariat. This is called the workers fighting back. You love to see it. Hey, I won't put money on it, but it does look very, very likely, almost definite. You're going to see a massive strike because Fain and the UAW at this point are not screwing around. They have a lot of money in their strike fund, and the troops are getting revved up, and we will definitely be on the ground to cover it.